Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
With the help of internal resistance and a number of other technical characteristics, it is possible to maintain the car battery in a serviceable condition for a long time. This is one of the most important criteria that are evaluated when monitoring its condition. Let's see in detail what it is, how to calculate and measure it. Internal resistance of the battery. What is it? This technical indicator is not so simple to explain, so it is better to start with available examples and situations. Say, when a new battery is purchased, then it will have a voltage of 13V. Each connected current consumer has its own resistance, which means that the battery potential will constantly be less than the maximum value. This goes against the well-known formula that tells us that current strength equals voltage/resistance. It turns out that the reduction of current strength does not only occur after external consumers are connected to the battery. Due to the processes occurring inside the battery itself loses its maximum characteristics. Normal values. The norm of the internal resistance of the car battery should be at the level of 5 milliohm. This figure should be guided by this indicator, although there are no standard values that would be considered exemplary. In any case, if the battery has already been used but is not yet worn out, the value should be between 4 and 6 milliohms. A significant influence on the overall loss of physical qualities of the battery is affected by the index occurring in the working fluid, which is the electrolyte. It depends, in turn, on the ambient temperature and its concentration. As the temperature of the fluid decreases or the density increases, the current loss increases. The capacity of the battery is also related to its internal resistance, and knowing this parameter, it is possible to draw a conclusion about the capacity of the battery. For example, if it has decreased by a factor of 2, experts conclude that the battery has lost up to 50% of its capacity. With these measurements, its ability to give a high inrush current for the load is determined. This is an inverse relationship. The lower it is, the greater will be the peak current and power. Increased resistance causes a sharp drop in voltage at the battery terminals. Even if it is relatively new, it will not be able to deliver a good peak current to the load. In the process of general monitoring of the battery current loss, this indicator is analyzed for its different components, terminals, electrolyte, contacts, and so on. If their value differs by more than 10% from the average value, they should be charged separately, and if this is not successful, they should be replaced with new ones. At the same time, an ordinary user does not possess the special equipment required to assess this criterion. The most objective method of such measurement is a test charge for 10 or 20 hours, and further comparison with the control data of voltage and discharge current. In short, the concept of internal resistance is a conditional value, and its value is constantly changing under the influence of operating factors. Therefore, when you want to get the most accurate calculations, not the value of internal resistance, but the discharge curves are taken as a basis. Read also, is it possible to charge the battery without removing the terminals, and how to do it correctly? Indicators are difficult to bring to universal, because the materials used in the structures are also different, and, accordingly, will differ in their characteristics. From this depends on the resistance of car batteries, as well as other parameters of their operation. The biggest difference can be found on the plus lead grid, while on the minus, it will be practically insensible. The same applies to the technology by which the electrodes were produced. This can be the presence of alloying elements, contact materials, construction, etc. On the other hand, the thickness and porosity of the material will affect the R value of the separators. For the electrolyte, the loss rate depends on the electrolyte concentration and temperature conditions. Meticulous motorists are always wondering, what should be the resistance of lead-acid batteries to consider it normal? As it turns out, there are separate recommendations on this matter. Each type of battery has its own manual or instruction manual. To find out the exact rate, it is best to compare old values with new ones rather than relying on absolute figures taken from the internet. If measurements are taken regularly, This is the only way to recognize changes occurring inside the battery in good time. Based on this, the cause can be determined and the need to buy a new battery or repair the old one can be assessed. How to check the internal resistance of the battery. One of the most important operational criteria is the control of the internal resistance of the battery. Earlier science has already developed measuring devices that help to control the relationship between the capacity of the product and internal peak current losses. The following factors are evaluated: resistance when AC current is applied, under load when DC current is applied, when alternating. However, these methods can be used to determine the qualitative state of the battery, but not its quantitative values. The internal resistance alone does not give a complete answer as to how many hours the battery can last in its current state, even under load. In order to know the condition of the device, it is better to purchase an internal resistance tester and take regular measurements. Every year, the resistance inside the battery itself increases by 5%. If this figure exceeds 5%, then it is necessary to pay attention to the load and operating conditions. Let's see what methods can be used to measure the internal resistance of the battery. AC supply. This method is the simplest in terms of preparation, but will take from 2 hours of time and more. For it, you will have to stock up on a capacitor with a voltmeter, as well as a resistor of a certain nominal value and a digital transformer. The main purpose of the digital display is to establish more accurate values. However, there are factors that do not guarantee a 100% correct measurement result. The battery electrolyte is constantly undergoing electrolysis processes that make adjustments. Constant load method. This option is used more often than the previous one. It is the most popular for automotive batteries. To do this, they are completely discharged under the action of the maximum short-term load. First, the voltage is measured with a voltmeter before discharge, and then after. However, this method can only be used to determine the exact value for batteries that are not too worn out. The short pulse method. This is one of the more recent methods, which is known for its maximum accuracy. The battery in this case can be neither disconnected nor removed from the vehicle. A single voltmeter will be sufficient for testing, and it does not adversely affect the performance of the battery. Read also, making changes to the design of the car, the need for registration, liability, and penalties dependence of the state of the battery on the internal resistance. It is necessary not only to be able to make control measurements, but also to understand how these processes inside the battery can be interrelated with its overall operational condition. It is best to use industrial equipment to perform a variety of measurements, not something that is assembled in an artisanal way. Only in this way it is possible to collect complete data on the characteristics of the battery and the prospects of its performance. So, what devices will help us to recognize the internal resistance? The most common of them, the so-called load plugs, which help to identify the operating voltage and load in a particular battery, products that help to establish the relationship between the impedance and the state the battery is in. Spectrometers help to evaluate the conductivity of the current at constant and alternating current levels. Despite their different operating principles, all these devices serve the same purpose. They determine the current loss that a particular vehicle battery produces. For this purpose, different indicators are taken into account: duration of charging and discharging, capacity, etc. Regular measurement of this value will allow us to extend the life of the battery without the need to replace it. The very concept of resistance in physics is usually denoted by the Latin letter R. In a car battery, it is the sum of two resistances such as ohmic resistance and polarization effect. The first includes a whole set of resistances that can be found on the battery banks, on the connections and contacts, in the electrolyte, and on the electrodes. The accuracy of internal resistance measurements in a car battery is influenced by operating conditions, air temperature, load, and current charge. If you do not have professional devices at hand, you can connect a halogen bulb and a tester in series. This is done under load and without a load, and then record the value that turns out to be higher. The difference should not exceed 0.01 ohm, so that you can judge the good condition of the battery. For those who do not want to make such calculations on their own, you can go to the nearest service station and make measurements, as well as request the conclusion of an experienced auto electrician. If you had a similar or other experience of evaluating a car battery, feel free to share it in the comments below. See you soon. In conclusion, understanding battery internal resistance is crucial for optimizing performance and longevity in various applications. By measuring this resistance, we can gain insights into a battery's health and efficiency, allowing for better management and usage. Whether you are working with consumer electronics, electric vehicles, or renewable energy systems, being aware of internal resistance can help you make informed decisions. Thank you for watching, and we hope this video has provided you with valuable knowledge on this important topic.